Good afternoon, folks. It is a beautiful and windy Tuesday here in Colorado. I'd like to welcome you all and for joining us on this first series in our funding readiness workshop series. We've got an excellent speaker joining us from the Office of Early Childhood, Lauren Morales joining us, as well as Ryan Cobbins, who will do an overview for our Gap Fund loan program over here. If you are looking to get Spanish audio for this, we do have live translation. There is an interpretation button in the bottom right that you can select. I will also drop some instructions in the chat, actually in Spanish for those of you that need it. Throughout this whole presentation, feel free to drop questions either directly in the chat or using the Q&A function that you see at the bottom as well. And from there, I think we can kind of dig in. So I'm going to start off with some introductions from our team. I will go first. Hello, my name is Scott Romano. I'm the Director of Operations for Energize Colorado. I've been with the organization since May of 2020 when we first started and did our first grant round. And we have recently welcomed Ryan Cobbins to the team. So Ryan, I will pass it over to you.
Yeah, Ryan Cobbins. I'll do a more formal introduction here shortly as I'll be presenting on our Gap Fund loans. And it's always hard to tell who's there. Kanita, Rebecca, if you guys have a quick second, let you guys introduce yourself and then I'll turn it back over to Scott or I'll just dive right in.
Hey, I'm Rebecca with Energize. I'm the program director. So thank you all so much for being here and we look forward to being able to answer all your questions.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Kanita Snow, and I am the Director of Partnerships and Marketing with Energize, and we're looking forward to sharing more with you.
And Lauren?
Hi, everyone. I am Lauren Morales. I'm the Policy Implementation Manager here at the Office of Early Childhood, working in the federal stimulus, and I'll be presenting on our various stimulus activities that are available to childcare providers.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, Ryan, I will let you start off with the Gap Fund loan program, and I'm going to hop over to the Spanish channel.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. It's a pretty exciting time as we launch the Energize community program and our workshops to small businesses and also childcare around the state of Colorado. And happy that Lauren's joining us as well. Like I mentioned, I'm Ryan Cobbins. I'm the program director for the Energize Colorado Gap Fund program. And in the next few minutes, I'm gonna really give a little bit more information regarding our Gap Fund loans, the use of those funds, and then some documents that are required. Let's see. I'm gonna share this real quick. And so as I go through that agenda, one of the things that I wanted to do beforehand is just maybe provide a little bit more context around grants versus low interest loans. And the reason why I do this is, part of this is recognizing the impact, especially throughout COVID, with the opportunity for not just nonprofits, but for-profit businesses applying for and receiving grants throughout the time of COVID. And so as I realized, as I received grants myself as a small business owner, that as I received those grants and now we're coming close to tax time, that those grants end up on my profit and loss statement for the most part as other revenue, that as my business generates a profit, I end up being taxed on a portion of that, where versus low interest loans, where the interest on those loans gets added as an expense line item on my profit and loss statement. And I mention that because that expense decreases my tax liability. And so, and I want to emphasize our loan product as low interest loans as well. And so let me dive into what the gap fund loans truly are. We're looking at loan sizes up to $20,000 with a term of 36 months or 3 years with an interest rate of 2.5%. Some of the uses for those loans include payroll, rent, lease payments, utilities, debt consolidation, working capital, equipment, inventory, and also capital improvements. The next piece that I want to dive into is, as we start talking about our loan product, is what are the required documentation that we would ask for. One of the reasons why I'm excited about our Energize community program is not just because we have low interest loans. We also have workshops set up like this to truly walk small business owners and folks around the state in the childcare industry around some of these required documents. In addition to that, we also have business advisors that are really there to handhold small business owners and individuals in the childcare industry really across the finish line to applying for whether it's our product, the Gap Fund low interest loans, or other products around the state. And so let me dive into what some of those required documents are. One of those pieces is a business plan, and the business plan really details your goals for the business. It asks those questions, what are your goals? Or I should say, and how will you attain those goals? And so it really maps out the objectives and also strategies for achieving those business goals. Some areas of the business plan include a description of your business, market research, and also strategies. It outlines competitors and how you'll market your product or your service. It'll include who's going to manage the business. And then, of course, financial documentations or financial documents. There'll be entity documents that may be required, such as articles of organization or articles of incorporation, or in some cases, industry-specific documents, such as things like occupational licenses or professional licenses that you're required to have in order to do business. Address verification as well. That include your utility bill or bank statements, your personal or business bank statements as well, including tax documents or your tax returns. And we say 1 to 2 years of your personal and business tax returns. For the Gap Fund loan, and although there are products around the state of Colorado for startups or for businesses with that are just opening, have opened, or that are under 2 years old, the Gap Fund low interest loan is for those businesses that have been in operation for 2 years or longer. And so, for example, as we look at the personal and business tax return and it says 1 to 2 years, recognizing that your 2021 tax returns may not be filed yet, may not have been filed yet. Your profit and loss statement, or some reference that as an income statement, and that's year to date. A balance sheet, year to date, financial projections. You'll notice that some of these items are in red. These are items that we have specific workshops that we'll be going through over the next few weeks, just to assist you in the preparation knowledge around these documents. In addition to financial projections, quotes for equipment, and things such as collateral, whether it's equipment that you may have previously purchased or inventory that may be required as well. And so, and then the last piece are and eligible borrowers would include the cannabis businesses, gambling businesses, businesses with more than 25 employees, and like we mentioned, businesses operating less than 2 years. And so I'll pause there real quick. I'll check the chat, see if there are any questions. And if none, and I know we'll have a section toward the end, but Scott, I can turn it over to Lauren if you are there, and let you take things from here.
Okay, everyone, give me 1 minute to try to figure out how to share my screen. The state uses Google, so Zoom is not something I'm terribly proficient in, so give me 1 moment and I can try to figure this out. So I think I can share this and then present from here.
There you go.
So apologies for not having this completely together. So are you seeing this slideshow now?
We are, Lauren, yep.
Okay. Okay, let me get back on track here. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, I'm Lauren Morales with the State Office of Early Childhood. We're currently the Office of Early Childhood within the Colorado Department of Human Services. As of this summer, we're actually moving to the Colorado Department of Early Childhood, which is really exciting. We'll be a cabinet level department. But for now, we're still part of the CDHS. So today I'll be talking about our state and federal stimulus funding opportunities. And as you probably know, the state has received a ton of funding, particularly from the federal government, supporting early childhood. It's a great gesture in recognition of the importance of early childhood. And as you can see, there's a couple of different funding streams from the federal side, including the American Rescue Plan, ARP, and the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, a very long name, but CRSA. Those are 2 federal funding sources that are really instrumental to us being able to provide some of the services I'll be talking about momentarily. And the other piece of this is our state stimulus. So we had about $17.6 million given to us through the state stimulus process to also support early childhood. So between about 20 from the state and several hundred million on the federal level, we have a lot of money working to work with in the early childhood world. We, on top of that, even have additional funding that is on the very bottom there, 178 million that we are getting spending authority for as of July. So I'm actually not going to be even talking about those July initiatives because there's so much to talk about just with what we have now. Just to kind of give you a very high level idea of what funding we're talking about. So the Office of Early Childhood has 3 priorities for federal stimulus funding. The first is access. This is, of course, very key to our early childhood picture. If families don't have access to care, then that's kind of foundational to everything else. So access is one of our main goals here. Supporting the workforce is another one. We cannot do anything that we're doing without our early childhood workforce and the people working in childcare facilities and supporting providers. So that is really, really instrumental here too. And then finally, the other main category that we're talking about is family strengthening, recognizing the role that families play, the incredibly important role that families play to supporting kids and children and recognizing the whole family system as worthy of our time and financial support. So I think I can maybe after I'm done presenting, put in the chat or share with Energize Colorado staff the links to these overview documents. So these are really, really good references that explain in a somewhat condensed version all of the various activities that we are funding through the state and federal stimulus. And this is just kind of a preview of those documents because they are pretty lengthy. So I can put this in the chat later. We can give you access to them. They're just online. So we can come back to that. So I'll start with access strategies. So let me just say right now, we have a lot of strategies I'll talk about today. I'll do my best to strike a balance between giving you enough information to get a general sense of what it is and not too much that is overwhelming. But I apologize in advance if it is a little overwhelming even our state staff have trouble keeping track of it all. So I'll start with our access strategies. And like I was saying, access is just fundamental to what we're trying to do with the federal stimulus. If parents don't have access to care, families don't have access to care, then we have all sorts of issues on the child side, the family side, in larger society. So access is really important to us. Our biggest pot of money is our child care stabilization grant. So it's over $200 million that is being sent out to eligible child care providers. It's acting primarily as an entitlement grant. There's a couple of key criteria that providers have to meet to qualify for the grants, but it is the vast majority of licensed child care providers across the state receiving 9 months of equal payments. And the purpose of this funding is to help them keep their doors open, really. It's the name says it all, it's to stabilize the early childhood sector. The next piece down is our employer-based childcare facilities. So we have over the years heard a lot of interest from employers wanting to construct on-site or near-site childcare facilities to help support their employees and their employees' need for childcare. So this funding is actually able to be used by employers to help support the creation of those childcare facilities. And we have given out some of that money. We're going to be giving out the rest in the next couple of months. Next is our Circle Innovation Grants. We have about almost $25 million that is dedicated to allow childcare providers and others in the community, such as early childhood councils or educational institutions, to come up with really innovative ideas to address the early childhood, the various issues that are faced by the early childhood sector across the state, and then apply for grant funding to support those plans of how they want to address that.
Hey, Lauren, I apologize. It looks like your slides aren't moving for us. We're still on, it looks like that main slide.
Oh no. Okay, thank you for saying that. Here I'm like going on. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, you might have chatted that to me. I think I saw a couple chats, but I couldn't read it. Sorry about that, everyone. So hopefully this will make a little bit more sense now. And I'm happy to send this out later if you want to have the PowerPoint to reference. And those overview documents I talked about a little bit ago will be really, really good references. So hopefully we're back on track now. And again, I apologize for not being able to realize that before. Okay, so 3 more access strategies to talk about. And thank you, Ryan, for interrupting me. I'm glad you did that because we have a lot more to talk about. So next up, okay, I think you should hopefully be seeing the access strategies continued slide. So the next piece is our, are we good, Ryan? Okay, we have a quality improvement incentive. So this is for existing child care providers who wish to increase their quality. So this is a financial incentive to that kind of recognizes all of the work that goes into increasing quality from one level to another. And so there's certain criteria that providers have to meet to get this incentive, but that it's available to everyone who is increasing their quality and who is already a licensed provider. Next up after that is our licensing incentive. So this is for providers who have become licensed or CCAP qualified exempt. So that's a special set of providers as part of the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. So newly licensed providers and newly qualified exempt providers can apply to get a bonus after they have become licensed. And that just really serves as a way to try to get more people providing care across the state since we have such a dearth of care. Next up after that is availability and outreach of childcare. So this is supporting early childhood councils outreach to childcare centers and trying to get family childcare homes to get a better sense of the availability of care and to boost the availability of care, just because we know that there are so many issues with access to care and not having enough care across the state. So we're trying to get better real-time information about that. We have a few more access strategies. And again, I'm trying not to go into too much detail, but give you a high level sense. So our Family Child Care Home Navigator program is specifically supporting, so there's staff at each early childhood council that is dedicated to supporting family child care home providers. And we know that things like business practices is not necessarily why people are childcare providers, and people that may not necessarily have that as a background. So trying to do some outreach to them through this initiative to support with that and any other needs that family child care home providers have. And the last couple of ones are the access to inclusive care. So this is connecting childcare providers with adaptive materials and technical assistance and training, specifically so they can better support the kids in their care who have developmental delays and disabilities. And our Emerging and Expanding grant after that is really, really popular. This has been an instrumental program to us being able to expand on the amount of care that we have across the state, so the funding can be used to expand existing child care facilities capacity. And it also supports providers to open for the first time. And that this money, because it's actually state level money, can be used on capital construction. So I guess facility construction, which is generally prohibited by the feds, but since we have some state money, is an option here. And this has been really, really popular. And the last access strategy I'll mention is CCAP, again, the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program, rates and payments. So that's bumping up the amount of reimbursement that providers participating in this program receive, and paying for additional absences. So if a child is absent in the past, providers have just not been given any reimbursement, but this is trying to move towards providing or reimbursing providers according to enrollment of children and not necessarily their attendance, to make sure that providers have more stable income who are, again, participating in the child care assistance program. So it's a lot, and that's only the first strategy. I think I can pause there. If there's any questions, I may or may not be able to operate the chat properly. But happy to try to figure this out and answer questions.
I'm reviewing the chat now, Lauren, so I will throw some things out here shortly.
Oh, I see. Yeah, now I see all the chats, but not moving on. Sorry about that. So it looks like there are a couple. I think I see these now. Okay. So Kelly, so her question is, does the quality improvement grant work for programs that are already level 5? Kelly, I apologize. Unfortunately, no, that is not available for programs that are already level 5. It's the purpose of this is to incent programs to reach higher levels, including higher level 5. So unfortunately, if a facility is already level 5, this can't assist them in increasing quality further beyond that. And Danielle, the E&E grant, the Emerging and Expanding grant, yes, so we actually are getting additional funding for the E&E grant. So she's asking if it will be reopened at any point. And like I was saying, demand has been so high that we just blew through all of the applications that we had gotten already, and all of the funding was dedicated, but we are actually getting additional funding to reopen that. Unfortunately, I can't give you a specific time frame for that, but just know that it is coming, and we are going to be offering that and reopening that application in the near future. I think that's addressing Debra's question. But though I guess I should probably mention, so Debra Locke was asking, are these programs open with funding? So like I was saying with the Emerging and Expanding grant, that one has been closed for a little bit, but now it will be reopened. I should say some of these programs that I'm talking about today some of them are up and running and have been up and running for a while. Others are still in process and they have not been rolled out yet. We just, for all sorts of reasons, according to the program, have not been able to roll everything out. And so as we are doing that, we're trying to announce it to our providers and our early childhood councils and people like that. But it's a good point that not everything I'm talking about today has completely been rolled out. and Christiane, having this in an email. So yeah, there's a series of resources that I can share, including the overview documents I mentioned. I'll also certainly share a link to our early childhood stimulus website. I think that's for now really, really great resource for providers as well to keep up to date on what's open and what is coming soon. I'll also mention our early childhood councils are really, really, really amazing partners, and they are the ones who are administering several of these programs. And so they're also a really good contact. So I would also encourage providers to reach out to their respective early childhood council. So Jonathan, do we know if there are published updates to funds available in the various buckets? Yeah, so Jonathan, I think kind of to your point and what I was saying earlier, we are in the process of, so we're working with a communications vendor, and they're getting up to speed in terms of what all of the funding initiatives supported by the federal stimulus are. And so we're trying to revamp our website. And once we have our revamped website, we're really hoping to do a better job of communicating what's open, what's coming, what's in process, and any kind of estimations of time for that, because we know it's been tough. We announced things in September and we're in April now, and people are still not entirely understanding what is available. So that is coming soon, and we really appreciate your patience as we try to roll this out. This is a huge infusion of money for the state, which is awesome. It's just, you know, it's taking us a little while to get caught up. So MK, suggestions for what to apply for regarding the Circle grant. So this is the Circle Innovation Grants that I mentioned earlier. And this is, our Circle grants are intentionally pretty vague and broad, the description for what people can apply for. And I guess I would maybe say that so providers, childcare providers on their own can apply. But also a childcare provider could partner with an early childhood council or another entity or another group in the community to put forth a proposal. And so I think we really would encourage a regional approach. If there is a specific issue that, for example, in your county or your neighborhood even, that you feel like could be remedied or at least addressed through receiving a grant, then I would encourage that proposal to be, or that to be the content of the proposal. We really specifically wanted to keep it pretty broad because we want people to be able to use that funding flexibly, knowing that there's all sorts of different concerns and challenges across the state. And we want it to be tailored to that part of the state. Timeline on the licensing incentive, Christy, that is an excellent question. So the licensing incentive is going to be running through the same vendor, same funding vendor that is administering our childcare stabilization grants, those grants that are going to all eligible childcare providers. And we're trying, and at this vendor is actually rolling out several grants for us kind of more or less at the same time. And so just know that licensing incentive has not launched yet, but we are going to be rolling it out soon. And we're still aiming for within the next couple of months, sooner rather than later, certainly, just because we know that this is one that we really want people to take advantage of. Applying for the quality, and this is also Christy's question, applying for the quality improvement incentive, that you can go through your early childhood council for that. That's probably the best path and most direct path to do that. So I would get in touch with your early childhood, your respective early childhood council, Christy. Yeah, so for the licensing incentive timing wise, it's after, so if a provider becomes licensed after October 1st of last year, you will be eligible for the licensing incentive. And the incentive is $5,000 for a licensed childcare provider, and it's $500 for providers who become qualified exempt as part of the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. So yeah, so that's that October 1st of 2021 date. That's the main stipulation that we have. You have to become licensed after that date. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, I think
That's
I
awesome.
think I got
Lauren.
through them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. And we have a few more minutes. If folks have any additional questions, I'll drag on for about another few seconds just to see if anybody has questions. But Lauren, thank you for that thoroughness and responding to those questions. That's greatly appreciated. I will mention in terms of our workshops, we will be doing different workshops throughout the month of April. Next week, on April the 12th, we'll be going through our business model canvas. And so part of going through the business model canvas is answering the question, I've heard I need a business plan. How do I put one together? And so that next week's workshop will walk through an overview step by step through the business model canvas. And looks like I just saw something pop in, I believe, from Christy here. Is there anything available to help with a down payment on a building? Lauren, she mentions their building is being sold and we have the opportunity to buy it.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I think I mentioned previously that there are a lot of restrictions on federal funding and it can't generally be allowed for that purpose. I'm trying to think of other options for you though. I mean, I think emerging and expanding, I know timing's not great because it's not been rolled out. That is probably a good option. But yeah, unfortunately the capital construction and the facilities side of things is really tough because of that restriction on federal funding not being able to support it. So there's not a whole lot of great options, unfortunately, Christy, but I think if the timing works out, the emerging and expanding grant payment may be able to support that. I would need to check that with our staff though, just because the facility purchase and anything having to do with facilities, again, is a little funky. So I don't have a great answer at the moment. I apologize for that.
And then I know Julie asked in reference to getting the information via email. We will definitely send the information out so folks have it and all that good stuff.
There are a couple other, there's actually many more strategies I can talk about. I feel like these are probably the most pertinent. I can run through the others, or I can send out the overview documents, or I can send it to Energize Colorado and they can send it out. I'm happy to do either.
Let's do both. We have a few minutes left, Lauren, and if you have a few, if you have a few minutes, we can run through those. Would love to make sure that we get information out via email because I know some folks like to read it. We do have interpreters as well that are translating the content that we have as well, just to make sure we're reaching those folks as well. So yeah, if you got
sure. Okay. Keep going. All right. So I will preface the next section. I am a little bit less familiar with some of the details of the workforce strategies. They're incredibly important. We actually have a couple staff who are just so strong in this area. They've just taken it and run with it. So I can talk at a high level. My ability to answer questions may be a little bit iffy for some of them, but we can try. And I know there's a lot left, so I'll try to go through this fairly quickly, but excuse me. So I'll start with the sustainability grants for workforce retention. This is actually given out at the same time and through the same mechanism as our child care stabilization grants. Those 9 months of payments to providers that I mentioned as part of the access section. And the purpose of this funding is to support personnel and workforce costs specifically. Sorry, hang on one second. Because I'm not used to talking this much. And then after that, we have some funding dedicated specifically for the retention and the recruitment of our workforce. And this takes the form of scholarships primarily, but also loan forgiveness. And so that is actually being pushed out through our partners with the Colorado Department of Higher Education. After that is our CCAP teacher salary increase. And so this is a part of the Colorado Child Care Assistance Program. We're trying to we're offering an ability to apply for funding to increase teacher salaries as part of that program. I'll keep moving. If I can find my mouse. Hang on one second. Sorry. Okay, we also are supporting 2 years of offering free ECE 101 and 103 courses. So these are some of the introductory courses that childcare providers need to actually, that's the minimum coursework required to become a provider and to be in a classroom with children. So we're offering 2 years of that free of charge, which is a great option. It's a great, removes a really important or really significant barrier that a lot of people face when trying to get into the early childhood world. We're also putting together an apprenticeship program and a teacher peer mentorship program. Those are still pretty much in the theoretical stage, but we're trying to offer alternative career pathways for people wanting to get into the early childhood workforce through that apprenticeship program. And it's modeled on other apprenticeship programs across the state and other sectors. And we'll be putting together also a teacher peer mentorship program that will be they'll assist programs, childcare programs in making sure that their professionals in the classroom are supported and are ready to go once they are able to join the workforce. And our last slide of workforce strategies is so we have a couple of online courses or online options. That's the first and last thing. I'll kind of talk about them together since they're somewhat similar. So we'll be offering, this hasn't rolled out yet, but in the somewhat near future, a free online director training. And so this is intended to help support all of the child care center directors across the state. And we'll be putting that out in both English and Spanish. And then the last thing on the list, I'll jump to that. We're going to be creating a series of courses that will be available online and available to child care providers if they're interested in learning about things like transitions from the early childhood world to the preschool world, how to reduce suspensions and expulsions, and we'll also be working on translating some existing courses. So we're trying to kind of take a more equity focused lens to some of these courses that we'll be creating using this funding. Though we, as you can tell, it's still pretty high, theoretical. We have to figure out what those details will look like. And the last two in this section I'll talk quickly about are Teach scholarships. This is such a really amazing program that I think a lot of providers are probably familiar with, but we're expanding the number of Teach scholarships that are being funded, and that's going to help us recruit and expand the early childhood workforce. And then we are expanding on another existing program with the Child Development Associates, CDA support specialists. Again, we're trying to recruit people from a wide variety of backgrounds to come and be early childhood professionals because we're trying to get as many people on board as we can. So that was all of the workforce. I feel like that was a lot, and that's all pretty, it feels a little bit more specific than some of the other ones to me, but happy to pause there again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren. It looks like Victoria has a question in one of the other areas here of chat in the question and answers. Victoria mentions, I run a nonprofit child care center in Jeffco and want to open another toddler room to relieve our year-long waiting list. I need a split sink to move the plumbing and install the sink is about $7,000. What funding stream should I apply to?
That's a really good question. I think primarily I would suggest using the Child Care Stabilization Grant for that. That's one of the things that because that kind of renovation is necessary in order to provide care. That's something that that's probably because of $7,000, which is a large sum of money, of course, and because it's necessary to providing care for the kids that you want to expand your business to care for. I think the Child Care Stabilization Grant is probably the best bet, and that's something that most providers are receiving at this point. So that's probably my recommendation.
Very cool. Thank you, Lauren. And then Sonia asked, will there be any licensing specialists available at any of the workshops? And I don't know, Lauren, if you have that answer. I will, that's one of those pieces that we can definitely add. So I appreciate that. I just wrote that question down as well. And then Lauren, did you mention that the workforce recruitment may have loan forgiveness?
Yeah, I would have to look again at our contract with the Department of Higher Education. I believe that's the component of the workforce recruitment and retention strategy. And yeah, so that's when I would have to double check on the exact details of how providers can access that. But yeah, that's my understanding that it's part of that strategy.
Okay. And that looks like, let's see, the CCAP Workforce Retention Grant is what Christy just posted. Thank you, Christy, for that. Any other questions? Oh, when is it being rolled out? Yeah.
Yeah. So Christy, are you talking about the CCAP teacher salary increase? I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. Yeah. So that's another one that I was kind of talking about before. So that one is also going to be managed by the same funding vendor that is managing our licensing incentive and the child care stabilization grants. We're working on implementation plans for the CCAP teacher salary increase, but it will probably be some kind of application. And again, we don't completely have a specific timeline. We're trying to at least put a timeline together for people that we can share, just so people have a heads up on when things are coming out. I don't have a concrete answer to that because we're still negotiating, but kind of discussing that with our vendor. But probably within the next 4 to 5 months, I would say.
Very cool.
And there's one final section I can talk about if we want to do that. It's the shortest one, so I'm happy to talk about it.
There's one more question that so are there any guidelines for licensing incentives or any kind of childcare?
Yeah, so I think if I'm understanding your question, Deborah, you can be a childcare home, you can be a childcare center. So you can be as long as you're a licensed provider, you become licensed within the specified time frame, or a qualified exempt provider as part of the CCAP program. You can be any kind of provider. Hopefully that answers the question.
All
okay,
right.
Really quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go through family strengthening strategies. This is one slide. So as part of this funding area, we are funding additional early childhood mental health consultants. So this is an existing program that is way underfunded, but it's really, really crucial to help support childcare providers with helping them learn how to manage challenging behaviors and establish some really good relationships and promote children's social and emotional health. So we're expanding that program with this funding. And we're also, the next two things are health and mental health grants and health and mental health programs. So the health and mental health grants are yet another thing that is going to be rolled out in the next probably 6-ish months through the same funding vendor as our child care stabilization grants. But providers will be able to apply for funding to pay for things like mental health services and trainings and things for childcare providers and their staff specifically, but also things that can support families. And we're working on a list of approved services at this point that once we have that all finalized, we can roll that out. But know that that's coming at some point in the near future too. Health and mental health programs, we're trying to provide additional funding for some existing programs such as Incredible Years, Pyramid, and Conscious Discipline. And those are kind of in various stages of being rolled out, but most of the funding for those has already been sent out through contracts and is expanding access across the state. And the very last one I'll mention is indoor air quality improvement grants. which we are partnering with the State Department of Public Health on. We're developing educational guidance for childcare providers to help them understand the importance of indoor air quality and find solutions for how to improve indoor air quality at their facilities. And we'll also be giving access to grants through the same funding vendor within the next 6-ish months for providers to apply for funding to make renovations and updates to their facilities. So that's it. I promise.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
And then I just got one more question, and then we'll wrap up for today. But Julie asked, will we pay taxes on these non-material grants, i.e. salary increases, etc.?
That's a good question. And that is something that we've been trying to direct providers to talk to a tax professional about. A tax professional would know much more than, unfortunately, us about any implications that some of these grants would have. I think it's a really fair question, but we were trying to leave it to the experts to sort out how this may impact any given provider and their financial situation.
Very cool. Well, Lauren, we definitely want to appreciate your time, your expertise in being here today. Thank you a ton. I want to thank our Energize Colorado team as well. Scott, Rebecca, Kanita, Macy, and Wendy as well. Like I mentioned, we will publish and push out all of this information. We know it's a lot. The next week, next week, April 12th, we'll be going through the business model canvas. We'll also look at the potential of having a licensing specialist available during one of the workshops as well. And so thanks, everybody. We appreciate your time this evening, and have a great rest of the week.